Court Street, Hamilton. Saturday, December 3, 1977. A mob of around 500 descend in rage, torching buildings and cars, just about anything in their path. Outrage over the decision by the state to execute Black Berets Larry Tacklyn and Erskine Burrows for carrying out a string of murders, most notably the assassination 4 years earlier of British Governor Sir Richard Sharples, his ADC, and his dog on the grounds of Government House. The outbreak of violence on Court Street reaches its zenith after a tourist and local resident, Gladwin Ingham, were killed in a fire at the Southampton Princess Hotel hours earlier, the fire set by a small group of rioters. Violent events and riots, the closest point the tiny island of Bermuda ever comes to revolution, according to former police commissioner Jonathan Smith, who was just a teenage boy at the time and who has now authored a riveting account of the events surrounding the executions in his new book, Island Flames.
It was a very tumultuous time in the early 70s in particular. There was a hit list at one point with 9 people in leadership were singled out for execution during this hit list in the early 70s. And those that conspired against the then establishment started to carry out that hit list. And of course the police commissioner was the first, and then the governor was the second, his ADC, and then that period of real severe violence ended with the shopping center murders. But it was it was a very strong anti-colonial feeling at that time, a very strong and aggressive Black Power movement at the time.
The book exposes just how divided the country was at the time over the use of the death penalty, particularly against Burrows and Tacklyn, with nearly all of the predominantly white-backed ruling United Bermuda Party in favor, while the majority of those blacks supporting the opposition Progressive Labour Party opposing, most notably its then leader Dame Lois Brown Evans, the first woman opposition leader in the British Commonwealth.
Lining up against the death penalty was virtually every single Black community club, the Bermuda Industrial Union, the Progressive Labour Party, the Social Workers Association.
Then there was what some saw as a double standard by the administering United Kingdom government on the use of the death penalty in its overseas territories.
Interestingly enough, at the time, the UK law was, capital punishment was against the law in the UK. The Labour government in the UK was against the death penalty. The UK could have granted clemency.
But they did not make such a grant, and historians say there was something very important they failed to tell Bermuda.
The UK said that their official policy was, we will not intervene. What they didn't tell Bermuda at the time, and it doesn't appear they told the diplomatic post in Bermuda in any great detail or the politicians in any great detail, was that the UK had already intervened in Belize and Hong Kong to prevent executions by hanging.
Mr. Smith writes how the findings of the later established Pitt Commission, whose job it was to investigate the causes of the riots, still stands the test of time despite nearly 40 years later.
This building sort of tidal wave of almost a feeling that Bermuda needed to change. The issues then are largely the same now.